Okay, so I have seen episode 2 of Marvel's Secret Invasion. So for this kind of review talk thing, I'm gonna go into spoilers for this episode and the previous episode. If you want to see, if you're curious and you want to see my thoughts on the show as a whole right now, just watch my review of the first episode. I don't do any spoilers there, and anything I say there applies to this episode too, in terms of general quality wise. But I can't really talk about the show without going into spoilers in the future, so consider this your warning. So, first things first, in the last episode, Maria Hill dies, and I am glad that they treat that with the reverence that they should. Maria Hill was never a major character, but she has been around since the first Avengers movie, since 2012. So she's been around, she's one of the OGs, basically. So the fact that her death is a big deal, and they treat it as such, I found good and refreshing, a good tribute to her character. This episode also dives into more of the tension that is building between Nick Fury and Talos, especially with information that Talos withheld from Nick Fury. That information being that there are approximately not 100, there's approximately 1 million Skrulls on Earth, and they have been on Earth in disguise for a while, and Nick Fury didn't know. But there's other things that, we don't really know about Nick Fury either. Like, what was he doing up in space this whole time? Was he just looking for a new home for the Skrulls, or was there some other purpose to that? I wager that there's something they're not telling us about what Nick Fury was doing up in space, and that will be revealed later on in the show. But yeah, the reveal that there's actually a lot of Skrulls on Earth was already pretty shocking. And then they go on to show that these Skrulls have infiltrated Earth's highest government bodies. The UK Prime Minister is a Skrull. There are people from all over the world. Big important leaders are actually Skrulls. Who have now put Garrick, I believe his name is, the leader of this kind of Skrull rebellion who wants to take over Earth. He's now in charge. And so he's basically in charge of a lot of countries of the world right now. So they really did a good job in this episode of taking the stakes that were established in episode 1 and really upping the ante in episode 2. This episode also shows us that Nick Fury is alone. He comes to ask Rhodey for help, and Rhodey basically tells him to get lost and fires him. So Nick Fury is alone, he's by himself, but we all know this is Nick Fury. He's always got a trick up his sleeve somewhere. So I'm not too worried about him, but it was a really good, well-acted scene with a lot of emotion between Nick Fury and Rhodey, two characters that we haven't really seen interact before, so we know that they're not super good friends, but they have known each other for years. And just seeing them interact and seeing Fury kind of betrayed in a way by Rhodey, even though it totally makes sense that Rhodey is a government guy. He's always been a government guy, and he's going to do what he believes is the best interests for his government. And since Fury has been framed by the Skrulls with the bombing in Moscow, Rhodey doesn't want anything to do with Fury. He's not an asset anymore. He's a liability. But by far, I would say the biggest reveal, if you will, is that Nick Fury has a wife who is a Skrull. Now, this episode doesn't necessarily reveal if Nick Fury is aware of his wife's true identity or not. They are married, apparently happily so. Their marriage is a secret because Nick Fury doesn't wear a ring. He only puts it on when he gets home. But only we know that she's a Skrull right now. So I don't know if that is going to be a thing, that even Nick Fury can't trust his own wife, or he knows that she's a Skrull. Nick Fury has married a Skrull, and that's why he has such a personal interest in helping these Skrulls. I don't know. It could be either one. But that was by far the most interesting and reveal, and the one that will have the most consequences in the show going forward, I would say. And one I kind of thought he has a closer relationship with one of these Skrulls than we think, judging from episode 1, but I never suspected him to actually be married to one of them. So that was cool, fresh. I didn't see it coming. Awesome twist, or reveal. I guess it's not really a twist, but an awesome reveal nonetheless. But yeah, this episode just continues the tradition of just being a bit much more mature, slow burn. Definitely, kids can watch it, but it's not made for kids. This is made for adults who are espionage thriller fans and also MCU Marvel fans who have been watching the MCU for a while and want to see something within the vein of Winter Soldier or Civil War, something like that. I believe this episode gives us the first torture scene that we see in anything MCU related. If it's not, then it's the first one that is pretty like uncomfortable to watch. It's nothing too bad. Obviously, they keep it TV-14, but they do acknowledge that this Skrull is being tortured by a guy. So that was pretty intense for MCU, which is a big turn because the MCU has been being criticized for being too jokey lately. Which, on that subject, it is a bit of a shame that I think the show is coming out now, because I read somewhere that this show is not getting a lot of views, and I do think that's because Marvel has pumped out so many shows, and so many of them have just been mediocre, that audiences are just kind of done with MCU shows, and the only people who are watching them are diehards like me. So, which is a shame because I do think this would be a really loved show. It's really well made so far. Again, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, if this just came out a little sooner when there's still a lot of goodwill towards MCU shows, I think the show would have done really well viewership-wise. But unfortunately, it's just not. I don't know if that's can also be blamed on marketing. It's really easy to blame marketing for things that you believe should have done well but don't. So I don't know if this is necessarily a marketing issue, but either way, it is a bit of a shame that not as many people are watching this. But yeah, that's just kind of my rundown on the highlights of this episode, and all of them I thought were pretty good. I am really liking this show so far. Episode 2, much better than episode 1, and I did like episode 1, so that's saying a lot. Let's just hope that this streak continues going. I am worried about the finale. Never trust MCU finales. But who knows? Maybe this might be one of the exceptions. But yeah.